Welcome one and all to another extremely scrambled edition of Heavy Hands. The thing is, folks, oh, by the way, I'm Connor Rebush. I'm your host. With me is Phil McKenzie. Phil, prove that you're here and alive.
Oh.
Good. So the thing is, folks, we wanted to do the handies this week, which of course we've been looking forward to all year. Basically the only thing that's kept me alive and chugging in 2020. I'm going to assume that's the case for you too as well, Phil. No need to confirm. The thing is we got a lot of suggestions. It turns out, Phil, everyone else was also looking forward to the handies. It's the only thing that would make having survived this year a worthwhile experience. And honestly, we still need to sort through them and come up with our nominees and stuff like that. But what we do have for you folks are what we've decided, because we have so many categories, we've decided to lump into the sort of ill-fitted grouping of honorary awards / quick hits. There are a bunch of things that happened in 2020 that are worth recapping, that are worth discussing, certainly that are worth making fun of. And we're basically going to do that as like a soft sort of teaser before we get to the actual handies next week. Because you know how, like, Phil, you know how there's like those like Access Hollywood shows, like for 2 weeks before the Oscars, there'll be a bunch of other like prognostication shows about who's going to win these meaningless awards.
I do indeed.
Oh, you do? Okay. This can be sort of like that, right? This is like this is that week where everyone's getting hyped. We're talking. This is our snubs and flubs edition of Heavy Hands, basically.
Yeah, I mean, more than like a primer, I think of it as being a chance for us to be simultaneously mean and lazy.
Mean and lazy, yes. Yeah, those were the two words I was really trying hard to avoid saying. That's right. It's been a hell of a year, and we just want a relaxed opportunity to talk about some of the shit we've witnessed. That's it. Phil, should we get into it?
Let's do it.
Okay. Well, first up, and we're going to try to, hopefully we've kept all of these attached to the wonderful people on Twitter who recommended them to us, or who suggested them. But our first award is the Cody Garbrandt Why Don't You Learn Award. This, of course, a lot of these awards, by the way, because MMA fans have like extremely short memories, are named after pretty recent events. This one works, I think, because at least all of Cody Garbrandt's like not learning happened pre-2020, even if that means like just last year. So it's okay that we have an award named after a man who only really stopped establishing himself as a guy who can't learn, a year ago. This was suggested to us by @TheStuartMoore on Twitter. And, well, fella, there does seem to be one just really, really strong contender, doesn't there?
Yeah. Because it's one thing to not learn and to stay static.
Yeah.
It's another to get visibly, tangibly worse.
Yeah.
Over several years in the UFC.
Yeah.
Like good old Mike Perry.
Good old Mike Perry.
So we recently watched Mike Perry in an episode of the MMA Depressed Us with Zane Simon, that son of a bitch, and it is really shocking how much worse Mike Perry was than he was in his literal first fights in the UFC.
It hardly needs to be said, but it was the Mickey Gall fight that we watched. Because it's one of his, not just worst performances, but worst fights ever. If not his worst fight ever. Yeah, I think the thing is that Cody Garbrandt only really stood out as a guy who was intellectually incapable of learning, specifically because his fights were so poetically in sync. That it was the same exact exchange. But in truth, fighters not learning is like more common than not. It's kind of the norm for most MMA fighters, that they just don't really change all that much over the course of their careers. And in the same way, that's true of people who aren't MMA fighters. So like, if it was just not learning, you'd have to consider like, I don't know, you could throw OSP in there, and who could say that he's not a deserving contender for that award, right? He's never learned, ever. You could throw Alexander Gustafsson in there. You know, he stopped learning, basically after Phil Davis taught him to wrestle a little bit. Just stopped learning everything. But Mike Perry stands apart as someone who, seemingly like by his own choice, got worse at MMA. He seems to have wanted to get worse at MMA. Right?
And the weird thing is that he came into the UFC looking like such an instinctive fighter.
Yes.
He's literally lost those things.
Yeah.
He has become a worse puncher. Has gotten less of an idea of how to track people down.
Yeah.
And the other thing about that goal fight that I forgot how close it was. I mean, not that it was difficult to score or anything. It's a clear 29-28 for Perry, which, and let's remind ourselves that he had to win via out-grappling a gassed Mickey Gall.
That's the thing.
It's also the fact that he really only won it off a very late and quite unfortuitous knockdown in the second round.
Yeah, it's really the fact that without all the grappling, he may very well would have lost.
I mean, he would have lost, but that's the thing. He would have lost without the grappling, and he would have lost without that one knockdown. Like there were two things. He had to in a completely way which he obviously didn't want to fight.
Yeah.
Against someone who just happened, he realized in the first exchange that he physically outclassed.
Yeah.
It's the fact that even then it came down to him just clipping him at the end of round 2.
Yeah.
Which he had otherwise been pretty soundly losing.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to, that is great. I mean, that's all strong evidence, but I really want to fixate on the thing you said before, which is that he got worse at punching. Because I want to emphasize that this is not, like, Phil is not critiquing Mike Perry losing punching power or something. Mike Perry, who I don't think was ever technically instructed that well in the first place, Mike Perry, who appeared to have as you said, Phil, an instinctive grasp on punching mechanics, has forgotten how to throw a punch, as evidenced by that Mickey Gall fight. Like, he doesn't... He now throws every jab like it's some kind of bizarre hammer fist. It's like, I don't want to bring up any extremely tired and dull, cliche, insulting things like punches like a girl, but it is almost as if his 19-year-old girlfriend / hostage has taken over his pad work and taught him how to punch all over again. And this is not because she's a girl. She has no experience with MMA, but that's what Mike Perry's punches look like now. If somebody is to comically, crassly impersonate what they think punching like a girl looks like, that is what Mike Perry did against Mickey Gall. So I don't know how he got there. I don't want to blame his 19-year-old girlfriend, who is surely a victim of the situation much more than Mike Perry himself is.
If she's proved anything, it's that when it comes to Coach of the Year 2020, she's not going to be coming up on Kevin Holland anytime soon. No,
I don't think so. But yeah, Mike Perry got markedly worse. It has to be Mike Perry. Okay, this next one's a weird one. I think the reason, Phil, we slotted a lot of these in is because we got so many suggestions, but so many of them were weirdly specific. This one, another one actually, from @TheStuartMoore. He also suggested the Bizarro Houdini Award for fighters who eat body shots without issue. Good name. I like the name. To me, there are a couple contenders in here. Though I see this is another one, Phil, where you have just declaratively written in the obvious winner. All right, go ahead, say it. Just say it.
Mark Chikadze.
It does kind of have to be Mark Chikadze. You want to tell the people why?
I mean, this one, I think, we're obviously gonna bring this one back in there. We've mentioned it a couple of times, but I think the Moicano fight does help to emphasize a bit. You really don't want to be getting hit by Rafael Fiziev.
In the body, or in general.
Yeah, and yet, as we've mentioned many times, it's all the gunshot body kicks that he lands. Jacasey just boxcar homers his way through, hitting them all clean. I mean, admittedly, as the fight site's Ryan Wagner has pointed out, he does land with the foot a lot, which does make them sound perhaps more. Yeah. As Rogan used to say, was it Rogan or was it Goldie?
It was
the
Goldberg.
Slap instead of the thud.
Goldberg.
Oh
would
yes,
say
hell
thud,
yes.
Thud, not slap.
Actually, one of the like actually true things he used to say.
Oh,
he just used to say it a lot.
Yeah, Goldberg frequently grabbed on to correct things. They just would become such canards for him. Like he would just say it over and over.
Hugged them to him,
yes.
like ragged teddy bears that would start to lose an eye over time.
Don't you remember in 2007 when somebody taught Mike Goldberg the word Turk? Like what wrestling move was, and every time he saw someone in anything that was like any variation of half guard, he would use that. He had to use that word. I miss Mike Goldberg.
I miss Goldie too.
Yeah,
he's the MMA. He's the commentator MMA deserves.
Absolutely. Yeah, the Michelle Pineda of commentators, surely.
So who were your other guys that you thought?
Well,
were just shrugging shit off?
I kind of wanted to say Davis and Figueiredo.
Yes.
I think he just blithely walked through a bunch of pinpoint body shots from Brandon Moreno in that most recent fight. Likewise, Chito Vera didn't give a damn about getting hit with some of the most disgusting left hooks to the liver I've ever seen from Jose Aldo. Did not seem to affect him one iota. And in addition to that, another Aldo one, since Aldo has been the body punch guy in this latest stage of his career, Peter Yan didn't seem to give a shit about those body punches either.
Oh.
And he got hit with a lot of them. And in fact, he still built just as comfortably as he normally does and increased his pace over the course of the fight. So I think weirdly, for as bizarrely specific as it is, this is a category with a lot of contenders. But it has to be Mark
another one. Poirier. Suzuka.
Oh, yeah.
A ton of body shots and still just ended up drowning Hooker in the last round.
And I thought he was gassing, too. And then he just got a second wind. It just didn't care. There are a lot of contenders here. I think it is really just the sound that Mark Jacasey, also the fact that, unlike all those other fights, like the Jacasey one was not competitive until the third round.
Yeah.
That's what really stands out, is that Jacasey got owned with body shots and everything else, got almost nothing done in return, and then won round 3. So it was
the fact he was clearly a technical step behind.
Yes.
And it was just a pure boxcar homering.
Yes.
And it's terrifying and amazing to see.
Mm-hmm. All right, so this next one, there's been a bit of contention. Most compelling weight class. This was suggested to us by @DweebPeasant. @DweebPeasant. Most compelling weight class. And I think the source of the contention here is that there's no clear way to define. I mean, it's obviously subjective what makes a weight class compelling to you or not. And I think listeners would probably assume that we would go with bantamweight because, people know we love that division. Frequently in the same way that after any bog standard heavyweight fight ends, I will sort of sigh and say heavyweight MMA. I'm just as likely to say in excited tones bantamweight after any number of bantamweight fights because they are so likely to be incredibly good and entertaining. But Phil, you didn't immediately say bantamweight.
Yeah, because I was thinking about it and I was wondering, is it featherweight nowadays? Because there's lenses that you can look at weight classes through. Is it the quality of the athletes in the division? I think I've come around to the idea that I actually historically underrated things like welterweight due to the quality of the baseline quality of things like wrestling. Mm-hmm. So bantamweight is historically is defined by action fights and power punches. I think those are the two main things which have defined it for a long time. I mean, I think in many ways, like Dominic Cruz was a bit of an anomaly at the top of this division.
Yeah.
Normally, it's been just people with freakish power and like close to flyweight pace, which just generates these, and close to flyweight scrambling, which just generates these incredible fights, whatever you do, and it has a high quality of athletes, and so on and so forth. You really can't go wrong with it. I think where featherweight has been interesting is that I think featherweight is currently the cutting edge of where we're seeing the best strikers come out of. I think that is, there's something to be said about how games evolve when they bounce off people around them. And I think featherweight is perhaps the division with just the highest density of like just quality strikers in a lot of different ways.
You know what? I'm actually gonna lend some weight to your argument here, because that the last thing you said there was the most compelling thing you said to me yet, which is that the way that the environment of the division affects the performances of the other fighters, there does seem to be an element of like the striking technique bar being raised by competition. Like, I was just thinking, we saw Korean Zombie, for example, gotten much sharper over recent years. Likewise, Andre Fili is someone who has sharpened up his technique. And then we have people beating the people who've sharpened up their technique and needing to sharpen up their technique to do it, like I was literally just looking at his name. Like Brian Ortega beating Korean Zombie, who, like, the guy who got technically way better, and then Brian Ortega had to reach another level of technical perfection to take him out. Likewise, Josh Emmett against Shane Burgos had to, like, sort of do something he had never done before. So I think you're right. There is a certain compulsion at 145 for fighters. Like, they have to get better at technique, specifically as technical strikers, to survive and advance through the top 15.
I think, and yeah, there's so many examples of people just raising their games, even raising each other's games. Things like Volkanovski Holloway 2.
Oh my
We saw Holloway visibly evolve and partake on Volkanovski in that second fight, and then Volkanovski making the adaptions. It's the fact that there's such a wealth of quality strikers in the division that are not even ranked and probably won't ever be ranked. Some of them won't ever be ranked. Like I was just mentioning guys like Mowgli Benitez.
My boy.
He's just a great, fun, like dangerous striker.
Yeah.
Who has already been basically pushed out of like a top 15 ranking by, like, who was it? Was it Omar Morales and
Sadiq Yusuf? Yeah.
There are just tons and tons of quality, genuine quality strikers just battling for dominance at featherweight, and it's constantly forcing people to up their games.
Even Ryan Hall. Right? Even Ryan Hall became a good striker because of featherweight. And he had to. He wasn't going to be able to out-wrestle people. What? Go on. Say it. Oh, I mean, he beat Darren Elkins.
Yeah. I don't know if we're going to say he's a good striker by the standards of his division, but he's certainly an extremely entertaining
He's certainly a better striker than he was.
Oh, yeah.
He got way better. So yeah, I'm kind of buying this argument, actually, of featherweight. I mean, I've always loved featherweight as a division, of course. So much so it's almost like it's just
it's very.
Go on.
I mean, it's still very hard to say. I mean,
yeah.
Still, like, in terms of pure entertainment value, I don't think you can top bantamweight.
Right. Bantamweight does seem to have the highest chance of, because maybe you have like a Julio Arce at 145. But not all of his fights are going to be like, oh my God, that was incredible. You'll be pleased by a technical. This is, Phil, you're like inhabiting my old role on this show and as an analyst, which is like just being the pure technique nerd.
A job. It's not just Yeah, it's not just being the pure technique nerd in like what you want to see, but it's that like as an analyst, if you see that kind of evolution happening, then it gives you clues and things to key in on. You can look for in other weight classes. If you know that a weight class is ahead of the game,
sure.
Bantamweight is the most fun, but I'm not sure if it's the most illustrative.
Yeah.
Is that
I don't know.
I don't know.
I kind of think if we're just thinking in terms of compelling as well, there are a few things in MMA more compelling than, like being genuinely surprised by someone improving. You know what I mean? Like, I say this on the show a million times. I love being proven wrong by a fighter doing something I've never seen them do before. Like, there's no other way I'd rather incorrectly call a fight. In fact, I'd rather that happen many times than have called the fight correctly, because a lot of my predictions are depressing. So I really, really enjoy when a fighter comes in. Like Brian Ortega beating Korean Zombie. Even if it wasn't an amazing fight, it was intensely compelling to me. Because I was like, holy shit, this guy is like a boxer. He's like got the footwork and the jab and everything. He looks so natural and so comfortable. And that even comes down to like, there's also like Cub Swanson recently proved me wrong by just still being a good striker with a really great feel for that aspect of the game. So yeah, I'm kind of with you. I kind of bantamweight rules, but in terms of like which division has given me the most pleasant surprises this year, I think it's featherweight. And Holloway Volkanovski is, I think, the one that really sold it for me. Because you're right, that fight was so satisfying to watch. Seeing Volkanovski be like every bit as good as we thought, and seeing Max Holloway be even better than we thought, and in ways we didn't think he could improve, or were at least skeptical of.
Mm-hmm.
That really.
And then Volkanovski like having to respond to that in real time.
Yeah, exactly. It is the adjustments division. Where it does seem determined less just by straight up dynamics and more by like how good are you at fighting. So yeah, I kind of like your argument there.
Right.
Featherweight. Wow. Who I never expected, honestly. This was supposed to be so much unlike the actual handies where we do lists of nominees and like deliberately badly edited cuts of Oscars music. I didn't expect us to have any upsets or even super compelling debates, but featherweight it is.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening to this week's Heavy Hands. If you like what you hear, please consider pledging to support the podcast on Patreon. Patreon is basically continuous crowdfunding. You sign up to contribute a certain amount per month to help us with production costs and the like, and in return you get rewards ranging from a mention on the Heavy Hands website to a question or topic of your choice being discussed on the show. We have a lot more in the works to reward you for your help, and we appreciate every contribution. No amount is too small. Just head over to patreon.com and find how you can help out the only show dedicated to the finer points of face punching. Now let's get back to it.
All right, here's one. This does step on a plan of yours, Phil. You suggested we should do this award every year and then have the same winner. Maybe we can still do that, but it sort of gives away the gag if we just say, most consistently useless technique, and then with little discussion, Phil gives you the answer.
Head and arm throw this year and every year.
Have we even seen that many bad head? I feel like we've seen some good head and arm throws this year, actually.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Right?
The really annoying thing.
Because you can do it well.
Most of the things that I like to shout at have done okay this year.
Mm-hmm.
People have used them at the right moments. Like, can you remember seeing that many terrible wheel kicks this year?
Where were there a lot of terrible wheel kicks? I can't.
There have been some years where just everyone has been throwing god awful wheel kicks.
Oh, right.
I just haven't seen that many this year. Like, I can remember people getting like hit by wheel kicks.
No. Yeah.
You had a spinning back kick KO.
Yeah. To the face, the one that's supposed to miss too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
So maybe it isn't. So, what is the most useless technique this year?
Most consistently useless technique. I don't know.
It's got to. I mean, there was that bunny hop thing that Michel Pereira did in his last fight. It's one attempt at being Michel Pereira.
He does do it at least once every fight. It has been pretty consistently useless. Have you never noticed
thing
him?
Where he goes on his hands and then hops his towards the other guy and then does a back kick. What a 4-year-old would think a cool martial art move would look like. That thing. I don't know if I've ever seen that one before.
Are you talking about the kip up thing or him just jumping?
Oh, he did literally he turned his butt to Chaos Williams on the floor on all fours, tried to kick him. And it looked absolutely pitiful. And it was his one attempt at doing some stupid Michel Pereira shit.
I don't even think I knew what move you were talking about. He did a mule kick?
Yeah.
From all fours?
From all fours. Yes.
I don't know.
I'm going to give it to that.
I don't think we can't call it consistently useless, but it certainly was useless.
It has a 0% success rate. I'm convinced it will have a 0% success rate. It's one of the only things I've looked at from Michel Pereira and thought, that would not hurt if it hit you.
That would not work. It's rare you get to say that about something that is actually happening in a UFC fight. That wouldn't work.
Especially something from someone like him. Because
true.
If he tries to backflip at you, as a regular human, you're like, I would not like that to happen to me.
Yeah.
But, I would be crushed like a Goomba in Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
If Michel Pereira did that to me. Even I found myself looking at his bunny hop mule kick, thinking, that looked absolutely pathetic.
Just most of the time you get to say that wouldn't work in real life. It's because you're seeing it in a movie working. But in this case, you get to say that wouldn't work, and it didn't. Which I guess
really
is sort of anticlimactic, but for Michel Pereira, it does kind of stand out. Okay, fine. I guess we'll move on from that. All right, the next one. Tito Ortiz Wordsmith Award. Now, I think this is an especially prescient year to have this award named after... who suggested this to us, by the way? At Cam Jam Doe, D-O-H. This is an especially salient award for this year because Tito Ortiz, Phil, you probably haven't been quite as exposed or as interested in this as we poor Americans. But Tito Ortiz is now a politician.
Yes, I have unfortunately been exposed to this on Twitter.
He is Huntington Beach city council member, and until they elect a new mayor pro tempore, I think is the title. Basically meaning mayor for now. Which is awesome. Him being sworn in was I don't know. You know when you predicted the dynamic of a fight so perfectly that you almost can't even enjoy it when it happens? Yeah, I watched that. It was on the very first word, Tito Ortiz could not speak. He couldn't do the swearing in confirmation oath from the beginning. I see slalom slur pose. Okay, thank you, Tito. So anyway, who belongs here for not being Tito Ortiz actually himself? Who lives up to the Tito Ortiz standard?
This one is quite tricky. Because I'm sure there have been some absolutely appalling things said by people post-fight this year, right?
Sure. There have been some good ones too. There have been many Kevin Holland moments, which at least deserve to be mentioned here. I don't know if they're Tito Ortizian, truly, because they're like Kevin Holland is like perfectly aware of what he's saying most of the time. But there's a certain Ortiz.
Yeah, I mean, I think the best ones are when people say things which are unwittingly incredibly stupid.
Yeah.
But it's very funny. You know, getting knocked out. You know, I'll knock him out 9 out of 10 times, and the other times it's me.
9 out of 10 times I don't knock myself out. Yeah, classic or true classic of the genre.
Don't fear me. Don't fear me. I fear the consequences from poor old Paul Pintello.
Yeah, you mean don't fear me. ...
Yes, that one. Don't fear me, and then a
really just when the response doesn't come,
rolls into the cage for some reason. A cold wind blows.
Yeah. It really doesn't feel like the setup when there's such a silence afterwards. It kind of just feels like you're telling people not to fear you. But I think the best one, and this is Cam Jamdo suggested this, and I had completely forgotten about it. Mainly because I guess it wasn't that consequential of a fight. Like it's a Hinata Moicano fight, and it doesn't stand out because it was the one that he won. Where the overall narrative of Moicano this year has been like, holy shit, he just can't make it as a lightweight, and everything is not working anymore. But Hinata Moicano had a fight with Damir Hadzovic, the one bout that he won, and really easily beat Hadzovic. Right? Like, what was the actual... Did he knock him down and then submit him?
I feel like he just submitted him. Like, he just took him down and submitted him really, really fast.
Really quickly.
That's all I can really remember.
And, here, I might even... Phil, I'm going to put a marker in here because I want to hear it. It'd probably help us if we actually hear this audio, huh? Oh, here's one. Oh, okay. Bloody Elbow article. You shouldn't have submitted me, Damir Hadzovic tells Hinata Moicano.
Yes. Moicano, I wanted to fight more. Then you shouldn't have submitted me.
Oh my god. When it was suggested, because I'd forgotten it. Okay, alright. Alright.
Yeah, you forgot that Moicano was the instigator, right?
Yes.
Do you want to re-record this segment from the beginning?
I'm just cutting in right here. That's perfectly fine by me. So when this was suggested, I had so thoroughly forgotten this fight that, yeah, as you said, Phil, I forgot that Moicano was the instigator, but I also forgot that, like, in my mind, Hadjovic's hilarious response was like, you know, very sort of Jared Brooksian. You know, like he was like,
no.
he had caused some shit and then he was complaining that he lost. No.
Oh, it was all factual.
It was literally the correct retort. So what happens is Hinata Moicano submits Damir Hadzovic effortlessly, almost immediately, takes him down, chokes him out, gets up and is immediately standing over him and is incensed. He's really pissed off. He's yelling at him. He's saying, you know, you're beneath me. You know, and then he starts bizarrely saying, I have no problem with you. And Hadzovic is looking at him like, you're looking at me like a maniac. Like, clearly you do have a problem with me. The altercation ends with Moicano explaining himself by saying, I wanted to fight more. And Hadzovic says, then you shouldn't have submitted me. Which is like a Curb Your Enthusiasm-esque. He's right. If you wanted to fight more, you could have kept it going. Fighters do that. It's a thing fighters do. You want to get some time in. He just went out and submitted him and then blamed Hadzovic for it.
Oh. Well, I can't see the future. Do you know what the fights were going to look like?
I don't know. Yeah.
At least his next fight.
What's that?
At least his next fight. Has he had 2 fights at lightweight now? Yeah.
3, isn't it?
Admittedly, like, he might have been thinking, if he knew he was in the middle of a 4-fight losing streak where he was getting knocked out every time, he might have actually genuinely been,
he's being wistful.
Willing to get more time. Yeah.
He's looking back from a future that has yet to occur, saying, "I sure wish I could have got more fights."
Yeah.
Maybe.
No, it just seemed like crazy, crazy adrenaline making.
Yes.
Because Moicano is such a as far as fighters go, I'm pretty sure he is a pretty smart guy.
Uh-huh.
Wasn't he studying law or something before he became a fighter?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So it makes it extra comical that he just went completely nuts.
Yeah, he was mad also. He explained to Michael Bisping, "I'm sorry, I'm very frustrated because today I fought in my hometown and I don't see nobody. I didn't see familiar faces. I didn't see my family over here. So..."
Damn you, Damir Hadzovic.
Yeah, right. I respect the guy. I'm a big fan of his. Oh, this isn't talking about Paul Felder. Okay. Yeah, just very confusing. I agree. Damir Hadzovic has always seemed like a pretty smart, put-together guy. And maybe that explains, when a nerd gets really mad, they're really bad at the insults, and they don't know how to put swear words into the sentence without embarrassing themselves. I think it was that kind of moment.
I think Moicano was having gamer rage.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
But that actually makes a lot of sense.
Yes, and I frankly can't believe he did not call Damir Hadzovic the N-word. Okay, next up, the Mirsad Bektic Award for Derailed Prospects. Now, Mirsad Bektic himself could go into this category because I think this was really the final nail in the coffin happened for him this year. In losing to... Who was it now?
Damon Jackson?
Damon Jackson. No. That wasn't his name, was it?
Both Damon Jackson and Dan Ige were this year.
Yeah, it was the second one that I think really, the Jackson one, that I think really underscored what's going on with Mirsad Bektic. It was the one that made all of the previous examples of this pattern seem really, really obvious. Yeah, Damon Jackson. I keep getting his name mixed up with another Damon who was in the UFC, whose name I clearly now can't remember. Yeah, so Mirsad Bektic could be in there. This was the year that he officially became we can't call him a prospect at all anymore, and also he's probably not going to achieve what we thought. At this point, he's definitely not going to achieve what he thought he was going to achieve.
No, I mean he is officially, not to be overly cruel, but he is officially a bust.
Right. That's just what it is. He's And again, we say this knowing that there's nothing better in MMA than being surprised. If somehow Mirsad Bektic could put it all together at this late stage.
Is he not retired?
Oh, did he retire?
I don't know why I'm thinking that.
He didn't say he retired.
I'm probably just getting him confused with... I think I'm just getting him confused with... what's his face? French fighter.
Which fighter?
French fighter, who was also a somewhat derailed prospect.
French fighter who was a derailed prospect?
This is not difficult.
It is. Why do you have such a way of just suggesting Surely if I knew this guy, I didn't think of him as a Frenchman first and foremost.
Duquesnoy.
Huh?
Duquesnoy.
Duquesnoy. Okay.
Yeah, no, he's retired. I think Bektic is still nominally fighting, but yes, really, really looks like he doesn't want to whenever he's in there.
Yeah. But no, it can't be Mirsad Bektic. It's Sean O'Malley.
Sean O'Malley.
Because fuck him.
Fuck him.
I think I'm hereby renaming this award the Twist of the Knife Award. Because the reason I wanted to put Sean O'Malley in here was that I've already disliked him. I mean, I think I had a sort of nascent dislike for him from the beginning. He's just annoying, right? Anyone who, I smoke weed. How often do I talk about it, Phil?
incessantly.
Incessantly, right? Basically, the entire process.
Every single break that we have on this show, in actuality, goes on for an hour, and it's just Honor rambling about like strains of marijuana and the ways in which he likes to cook and smoke it.
That's right.
Yeah, it's just interminable.
That's right. And, you know, I'll be the first to say, it makes me a person, Phil, you should not spend this much time with me. Right? Isn't it your least favorite aspect of my personality? The fact that I have replaced that personality, with weed? Yeah, I mean, that's already like a bad sign. Anybody who makes their personality, just puts out this extremely performative, like, oh, I'm about this niche interest, is already sort of off-putting to me. And then came the Cheeto Vera fight, which of course I was gunning hard for my boy Cheeto. And in that, in the build-up to that, the night of the fight, they played, you know, a promo package where they had their little cut-up interviews with the two fighters. They gave a bit of their backstory. You know the drill. They try to give you some sympathy for these two characters, basically. And Cheeto Vera's story is, of course, a big part of why I became attached to him in the first place. Is kind of harrowing and heroic and very sympathetic. He does not come from a well-to-do background. He has struggled a lot, and was fighting for like his daughter, who had this rare debilitating condition that paralyzed her face. And was, like, it's hard to write it's in fact so on the nose that you wouldn't write it this way, right? Cheeto Vera is fighting for his daughter's smile. Like, that is not, it's so on the nose that if you wrote it in fiction, it would just be pure saccharine bullshit. It's a great story. And opposite this, in the same promo package, was Sean O'Malley saying, and I'm paraphrasing, but this is pretty much the bulk of it, when I was 12, I told everyone I was going to be, like, super famous. That's his dream. Is to, like, do TikTok. Go live in one of those, like, creepy, like, Vine pedophile mansions where, like, you know what I mean? Where you have to live with a bunch of other 14-year-olds and you just, like, make content all day.
Oh, God. I saw a glimpse of that.
Yeah?
Sent a chill into my soul.
Yeah, that's what you do if your main drive in life is to be famous. One of the emptiest ambitions imaginable. Like, I think everyone can entertain it, but if that's your thing, that's the seed of your story, you suck. And then he got fucking blown out by Cheeto. And he keeps getting injured, which does seem like a really bad sign if he is gonna continue to be a prospect. And then I think other people, because other people are fickle and they can't dislike somebody, bravely the way I do, when they're popular. But since he started losing and getting injured, I think other people it's become more amenable to them to consider that maybe he sucks and is a douche. And so I mean,
it's also the fact that he took that loss.
Oh, really badly. Yeah.
So badly.
You're right.
Yeah, he's a prelim fighter, and I was winning easily, and then this stuff happened, but I would still win if we did it again.
Yep.
MMA, one of the things it does best is sore losers, but Sean O'Malley.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
So yeah, Mirsad Bektic Award for Derailed Prospects. Fuck you, Sean O'Malley.
One loss. It's the end of the road.
One loss. You got what you deserved, and that's it. We've written you off. Sayonara, sucker. All right, next one comes to us from, God, I'm going to mispronounce his name. He's one of the vaping scooter lads, isn't he? Matt Gioia? At Gioia Plata? It's Italian, okay? So I think I'm getting it right.
I'm going to do what you would do to Zane and leave you to be crucified on the cross.
Thank you.
Terrible pronunciation without helping.
Thank you. So Matt Pajariera of the Fight Site suggested the K1 Maya Award for Best Kickboxing from a Grappler. Now, Phil, you were agonizing over this one earlier. I think you took this one very literally. And I
did.
I don't think it has
briefly.
Yeah, like which is has its own sort of interest, right? Like this is MMA, so somebody coming in and improving in a phase we didn't expect them to improve in is cool. But really, like you get both of those things. You get grapplers who genuinely are good at striking, and you get grapplers who face another grappler and decide to do the worst striking ever. You get both of those in MMA, but it's sort of weighted towards one rather than the other. We get a lot of K1 grappling performances. And do not forget, I think what tipped me off is the fact that this award was, from its inception, named after K1 Maya. That was not a complimentary term originally. It was denoting the fact that Maya should not have been spending so much time striking. In fact, I think you'll find
Well, again, another rewatch that we had at some point relatively recently.
Mm-hmm.
It was a shocking recollection of just how much Maya whooped up on Chris Weidman on the feet when they fought.
Oh, yeah. It's true. He's never been a bad striker. Although I think you'll find that it was NCAA Maya. It was All-American Maya that really, I think found the winning formula. Because despite how well he did in that fight, he did lose. So,
yes.
So who had the best and or worst grappling, or which grappler in MMA had the best and or worst striking performance this year?
I mean, for two performances, I think, which were both absolutely incredible and pretty much top of the food chain stuff, it's Alexei Oleinik. What was his, what
were the two performances? I can only think of the one.
There's Derek Lewis, where he obviously terrified Derek Lewis into wrestling with him.
Uh-huh.
Derek Lewis was just cannot stand with this man. He has too much power. It's too much accuracy. His hands are gigantic. There's nothing for me here. I must wrestle.
This guy knocked out Jared Rosholt. We gotta respect the power.
Also, this fight this year also had the Fabricio Verdum fight, which was absolutely incredible.
Oh my god, I forgot about it.
Remember?
Too much has happened, Phil. I can't believe I loved that fight. It was so fun.
So good.
It really was a great time. Ancient, stiff old man barreling out of his corner, and the former heavyweight champion of the UFC just sort of cringing away from him as he windmills towards him. Yes. Fantastic. Well deserved, Alexei. It really was the bungalow fight. I loved that fight.
It was so good.
Yes.
It was absolutely incredible. Because it was also like what Fabricio Verdum did to other people. It was sort of like what he did to Travis Brown. Travis Brown was like, "Oh yeah, I'm a technician," and Fabricio Verdum was like, "Blah!" and just scared him off and just kept attacking him.
Mm-hmm.
And Alexei Oleinik did that to him.
Yeah. God, that was an awesome performance.
With giant old man hands flailing around.
Yes. Yeah, I think Oleinik's frame really adds to the appeal of his punching as well. He has these weird orangutan arms.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Huge long arms and massive hands.
God, thank you so much. This is what the Handies is really about. And the pre-Handies. Foreplay, I guess we're calling it. It is you reminding me of all the things I've forgotten. And this is a year particularly full, I think, of things that are forgettable, not because they were bad, but because the year in which they happened. God damn, that was a good one. Yeah, that's really good. I was gonna, I think, have a better case arguing against Oleinik as the pick. If you hadn't reminded me of that amazing striking performance. I was gonna say, of course, Mackenzie Dern.
Yes, also very, very good.
Mackenzie Dern has been the ultimate K1 grappler. in MMA so far. And I think like there are a lot of little factors. There's a lot of like subtext that makes these performances as hilarious as they are. Like, for example, she lost to Amanda Hebush in 2019. Like, she's had her prospect loss. She should have learned her lesson. And I've seen no evidence that she has really taken that to heart. She seems to have just doubled down on being K1 Dern, which is great. You'd think maybe she would have taken the cue from...
I feel like the Hebush fight is somewhat unfair, because I think a prospect loss should be a fight where someone loses it and they're like, oh, I have to change it in order to overcome this in the future. Like the Hebush fight was one where it was just like, you're never going to beat this person. You're never going to beat them ever. They're better than you.
Sure. It was like Namajunas. It was like Namajunas Van Zandt, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, okay. So just a little wrinkle there. I think the other thing though that really gets me, and it really does come down to one moment, because of course there was a lot of awful, hideous striking in that Virna Jandiroba fight that just happened. But it's really the Randa Marcos fight. And it's really one single exchange. And I think this is like K1 grappling coming full circle. Because normally the person is not quite good enough at the striking, but not quite good enough at it for it to be really effective. But they're good enough at it to keep themselves in it, right? They're good enough to keep themselves in what is often a losing battle, or at least an ugly one. Mackenzie Dern has found a way to strike so badly that she ends up grappling by accident. It is in fact a brilliant inversion of the K1 grappler mentality. I'm talking, of course, about the time against Randa Marcos that she threw, I think it was a kick. It was probably the most powerful kick ever thrown, if I think back to it. Thank God Randa Marcos was 8 feet away when it was thrown, or she would have lost her leg. But as it was, Mackenzie Dern just sort of pirouettes, spins around about 8 times, and then falls on her ass. And this display of completely atrocious striking leads to Randa Marcos getting so excited that she leaps into Dern's guard and promptly gets submitted.
Yeah, that was actually really good.
I think K1ing yourself into a submission win is kind of like a new level. I think I'm going to have to agree with Oleinik, but Dern really has tremendous potential for bad grappling striking. Yeah, and
because that's like galaxy brain shit right there.
Right.
Make yourself look so terrible.
Yeah.
Really is some like playing possum type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That like the person cannot stop but think, oh, I need to kill them now.
Yes.
Many levels above.
Yeah.
The old Doom Fedor knockdown into submission.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you throw yourself off balance to set up the submission. It's I think it really may define the future of this sport, and we just haven't really appreciated it yet. But and also there would be a serious contender for this category. I would actually like to put like Ryan Hall in there, but that fight over Darren Elkins was last year. So he's an actual K1 grappler.
What's his face? Bryce Mitchell.
Oh, Bryce Mitchell.
So surprisingly,
he's been a surprisingly good striker almost from the start. But yes. Yeah, he is a genuine K1 grappler as well. Yeah.
Financial support is fantastic, but there are other, even easier ways to support Heavy Hands. Perhaps the best is by spreading the word. We know our fan base. You're all cool, popular people with serious social media presences. You're tastemakers and trendsetters. Okay, there are 1 or 2 of you that don't fit that description. You know who you are, but no matter what, you can always help us out by telling folks about the show. You can also give us a positive rating and review on iTunes and Stitcher, things like that. We rely on word of mouth and positive feedback to grow and improve, so thank you very much for your time and your help. Now, back to the show.
Okay, well, our next award is this one comes to us from at Random Numbers with 3 S's on the end. The Michelle Pereira Award for treating MMA with the rigor and respect it deserves. I myself mentioned Pereira earlier in this show as like an example of unbridled insanity. And Phil, you've written something in here and where the nominee would normally go that sort of makes me realize my own mistake. Right? And maybe reveals that this award shouldn't even be named after this man. You wrote, fuck you, Michel Pereira, you traitor, in all caps. Explain your feelings to the audience.
Michel Pereira did the most unforgivable thing against Chaos Williams. Mm-hmm. Tried to be good.
It's not his first time either. It's not his first offense. He's clearly kind of for the last 2 or 3 fights been considering getting good.
Yeah, you can see he like wants to pick his moments to look cool.
Yeah.
Which means that he does a whole bunch of nothing.
Yeah.
He's been trying to get good in the worst possible MMA way.
Yeah.
He hasn't been like, because there's a, you can be, there's a case study out there of how you can be a meme fighter. You can hold on to the memeness whilst getting good. And it is, obviously, our boy, Kevin.
Right.
This is not that.
The trick is to weave the memeness into your style, right? Maybe that's a little easier for Kevin because so much of his memeness comes from his dialogue, which he's comfortable doing even while fighting very well. But, there would be more interesting ways for Michel Pereira to get good than to just stop doing all the crazy stuff. Like, he didn't even really need, like... Well, I guess he did. I guess he had the prospect loss, but it can't even treat it that way because this guy had, like, 30 fights. And he's lost many times before. So I just don't... There's no good excuse for this change in behavior. There's no good excuse for him to lose to Tristan Connolly in a way that he has lost, like, 8 times previously in his career, and be like, you know what? I think the solution to fixing my problems is to be not fun. Fuck you, Michelle. You piece of shit. That Chaos Williams fight should have been a barn burner of insanity. It should have been a barn burner and then several barn explosions.
Right. Like, Ryan Spahn against Devin Clark. Is that the one?
That's A1.
That fight was... Oh, no, sorry. No, it was Ryan Spahn against Johnny Walker.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Remember, like, I laughed through the entirety of that fight.
Yes.
Was exactly what was promised on paper. Neither of them made any effort to be good at all.
That's right.
And it was tremendous, and it was a gift to us.
Elias Theodorou, Derek Brunson. Didn't happen this year, but another example, like everything you wanted it to be. And in that case, it was okay for that everything to be a lot of nothing. That was what you expected, and what was funny about it.
Also, Elias Theodorou is always really trying hard to win fights.
Absolutely. That is his best effort, and fuck you for not appreciating it, okay? Just because it's technically not effective or it's bad MMA, he's doing his best. Michel Pereira is not, okay? His solution...
That was a really good argument that he lost this terrible dog shit fight.
I thought he did, yeah. I thought he lost it. He has just actively made himself worse while also becoming significantly less crazy. And to me, that is unforgivable. And frankly, to win my love back, he would have to just do several stupid things in a fight again. Because I'm an addict. I mean, I'm going to watch these shitty performances. He still does 1 or 2 stupid things.
So, I mean, like, he did the bunny hop. It was so pitiful that no one even remembers it.
Yeah. Well...
Oh, damn you, Michelle. Come back to us.
Just give this shit up, you know? You don't have to be Kevin Holland either. Like, you don't even have to try to be good. Like, the UFC will keep you around. You're such a ridiculous fighter. And he has to recognize that, right? Like, how he got to where he is by being a stupid fucking meme. He didn't get to the UFC because he's good. He got here because he jumps off the cage and runs at people backwards and stuff. Do more of that. Okay. We got a couple more to get through here. We may not indeed get to all of these. But let's go ahead and talk about this one. You came up with a bunch of examples, so I'm going to let you take this one away, Phil. This is the Conor McGregor.
This was the...
Oh, please, go on.
Yes. Conor McGregor Award for the best performance in a hypothetical fight from at Kargon of Assad.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an interesting way of looking at this one. Is it either fights that were cancelled, or is it fights that exist in people's brains? So I think there's a few to think of. There was Conor McGregor himself in his imaginary win over Khabib Nurmagomedov, which was only taken away from him by cheating, because Khabib, cheated by winning.
Mm-hmm.
Admittedly, that fight, the real version of that fight didn't happen this year. The imaginary one did. Conor's really been building up his delusional narratives on that fight over time. Whereas it was like first it was like, oh yeah, better man won, and then it was like, was he complaining about a foot or something this time? But then eventually it was just like, oh yeah, I was winning every round, and then he got lucky at the end.
Maybe it's just the intensified cocaine and alcohol consumption. But you know how Conor McGregor is suddenly rapidly aging the way Irish people do. I think I can already see it has already taken on this tone of him recapitulating his youthful battles. You know what I mean?
Oh yes,
he's clearly a 70-year-old man in the pub who's like, oh, and my foot, and let me tell you, and everyone's already walking away and they don't want to hear him talk anymore.
On that note, Sean O'Malley's imaginary victory against Chito Vera.
Yep.
Which he was totally winning, and then it still sort of seems convinced that he won somehow.
It's a little rich.
Chito put his head through the mat.
It's a little rich to assume you were gonna win the fight, by the way, because you're a guy who has historically lost third rounds, and you were sort of winning a minute and a half against a guy who historically loses first rounds. It's not a lot to go on to assume you were definitely going to win. So
I was looking at that, I was thinking, he's not doing very well against Chito. He's sort of winning.
He really changed his whole approach. He was clearly taking respecting the opponent. And yeah, as we said, his shot was to go out there and just obliterate Chito early. So, yep, that's a good one.
Fights which just didn't happen. There was obviously Khamzat Chimaev dominating Leon Edwards. Fantastic performance. Really showed that he's contender material at welterweight.
And thanks to the pandemic, he has now had a series of hypothetical fights with Leon Edwards, about as long as Charles Oliveira's actual series with Nick Lentz. And at this point, he's crammed an entire Ferguson-Khabib saga worth of cancellations and reschedulings into the last 4 months.
Yeah, he's pretty much just hypothetically broken Leon Edwards at this point.
At this point, they should stop hypothetically sanctioning these fights.
Yeah, Leon Edwards is just hypothetically shot by this point. He's just never going to come back from this. And then there's obviously, Tony Ferguson most recently breaking Charles Oliveira in a one-sided battle. Was indeed pretty one-sided. Did Tony Ferguson himself talk about that? Well, yeah, he was saying that Oliveira was mentally broken after round one. Oh, I forgot about that. Do you think Tony Ferguson just is he just saying things about himself but putting other people's names in? How far into the mist do you have to be to say that in a fight where you only had success in the first round, really? A very long way. In the mist at the point where the giant monsters are striding overhead. The behemoth and you're considering having a mass suicide of your family kind of thing. Yeah. Tony Ferguson is seconds away from killing his own son. Remind, we are referencing a Stephen King. That's right. Story here. That's right. actually saying that Tony Ferguson is going to do things like that.
Tony Ferguson losing to Charles, losing the decision to Charles Oliveira in the background. This moving music.
What's the winner of these ones? I wasn't sure. It's probably Kamzat Chimaev.
Probably. It really has been like a massive saga already of this fight happening.
I mean, it was an incredible hypothetical win. I mean, who else, only like 3 fights and less than a year into their UFC career, has beaten pathetically a top 3 fighter in a genuinely very good division? I mean, you can't really front on that kind of quality.
He's almost hypothetically champion already. He's hypothetically succeeded so much in this hypothetical matchup. Yeah, I think it does have to be Kamzat Chimaev, surely. The projected greatest fighter of 2020.
Yes.
Okay, a couple others here. Maybe we just pick our favorites, because we're already over an hour. And we don't want this to be as long as the actual handies are going to be. People listening to this are already thinking, how are they going to have like a typically 2-hour long show of this, but more in depth? Trust me, folks, we'll do it. I kind of like the Oh No Bud What Happened to You award. And this was suggested by someone whose name we probably already read because it's been separated from it in the document. But you get the sense, dear listener, what this award means. You know, when like you think a fighter's really good, and then like sort of not even till like after it's happened, does the realization really hit you that like they just got a lot worse really quickly? This is basically like, okay, I finally have to admit all of those vaping scooter kids were right. This fighter is shot. And Phil, I mean, it's Marlon Moraes.
It's Marlon Moraes.
It has to be. Like, there have been other people who got worse. There have been other people but no one has fallen quite so far as Marlon. We said this just last week, but just to reemphasize, Marlon Moraes had wins over KO wins, like quick finishes over Jimmy Rivera, Aljamain Sterling, and Rafael Assunção. We have a perennial contender, current number 1 contender, and another like very solid top 5, fringe top 5 contender in Jimmy Rivera. Quick succession, obliterates all 3 of them. That's his route to the title. And then everything since has been, like, at best, lackluster. At best, his win over Jose Aldo was a lackluster Marlon Moraes performance. In a fight in which Aldo was just coming to terms with like what it is to be a bantamweight. And everything else has been an unmitigated disaster. Where Marlon Moraes has just gotten fucking mopped, like physically, mentally, technically. He's gotten worse in basically every area you can. Is that fair to say?
It is the fact that he just gets hit hard and then immediately looks like the proverbial deer in headlights.
Yeah,
it's it's just Hanan Barrow all over again. It just something happens in the fight and then suddenly he's absolutely frozen and terrified.
Mm-hmm. Well, a couple other quick hits here. This makes me very sad that it's already apt enough to be named after him. I think this might be another one from Matt Joy, actually. The Jussier Formiga Memorial Award for good fighter most likely to get cut by 2021.
Yeah, assuming meaning end of 2021. Because...
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, at least good fighter most likely to get cut soon.
We'll know who it is. Everyone knows who it is.
Most of all, me. Just you say it. I can't bring myself to...
It's Rafael Assunção. Who else could it be?
Rafael Assunção. He's been so good for so long. Like, way more... like, the only reason Jussier Formiga gets this award named after him is because he already got cut. Because otherwise, this is the Rafael Assunção Award. I don't know how he's not been cut so far. He's everything Dana White and the matchmakers hate. He's a striking Jake Shields. He's boring, you know? I love him for it, but the man is boring. And he's too good.
He is single-handedly holding back Bantamweight from being just unmitigated excitement.
He's so powerful, Phil.
Yes.
They can't stop him.
He's been holding the gates for so long, damn it.
Damn it. And they have waited so long for that, it's time has defeated him. That's it. He was clearly so good and so capable of holding back this division, which is otherwise boiling over with excitement. Just keeping its feet on the ground. Anchors can be both good and bad, Phil. And Rafael Assunção was keeping this division anchored, and now they finally have the excuse they needed to cut him, which I'm sure they've wanted to do forever. Frankly, the only thing he's had going for him is that he's like a company man who will take whatever fight they give him and is nice and quiet and doesn't talk back, or, you know what I mean? So, like, unlike Jose Aldo, he doesn't get any pushback from the UFC. Like, I just think they don't even know he's there. He's been like the guy in the mailroom all these years.
Yeah, well, at least his last act upon leaving the company probably will maybe to give some shine to Honey Barcelos. Although
have they made that fight?
Yes.
Oh,
would be darkly hilarious.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Barcelos, fought so hard to get to the UFC, and he's old, and he's technically skilled, and he's athletic, and you're like, oh, this man needs to get into contention. He needs to get into contention soon. And then he just loses a split decision to Rafael Assunção off 3 right hands.
You know how much I would love to see Hoffa do it one more time. Yes. Just feint his way to a contentious split decision win. Oh, somehow the fact that it hurts Honey Barcelos, whom I really like, makes it better. Yeah. Come on, Hoffa. Prove us wrong. Prove you aren't going to be the actual recipient of this award. But yeah. Okay, we've got this one will be a quick one. The Alden McGregor Award for Hold Up That Ended Too Fast. I think this one might have also been from Matt Joya. I should stop guessing, though, because I don't want to attribute these to people who didn't suggest them. It's Figueiredo Perez. That was supposed to be really exciting.
Damn it.
We were pretty hyped for it. I think the fact that it basically doesn't feel anything like Aldo McGregor now is because we got the Moreno fight, which was sensational, 2 weeks after. But had that been the last performance of Figueiredo, it would have been like, okay. Like, you already did this to Joe Benavidez. You're supposed to give us fun fights now, not just be murking title contenders. Yeah, I just saw another one that you put in. I think we might be done, though. Should we do the Overeem's Lip Award for most horrific in-fight
let's
injury?
do that one. Has to be.
There's just one choice. It's Ioane and Jacek.
This is from at Jadankites on Twitter.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's Joanna's second head. I mean, have you looked back at just
yeah.
Look back at that.
Have I looked back at it? I have a hidden folder on my phone devoted to those pictures.
I mean, it's the fact that you remember it as being like a giant freakish injury on one side of her head. It's the fact that by the end of the fight, it was getting engulfed the entirety of the top of her head.
Yeah. It's somehow it was only on one side at first.
Yeah.
And then by the end, it had distorted both of her brows.
Yeah.
She looks like the alien from American Dad.
Yep.
You know, like the really classic gray alien.
Yes.
She looks like a 2000s era sticker for a local radio station that plays only butt rock, and they would have had that green alien head and would have said WKJJ.
I mean, it's tempting to call her that she looked like a Klingon. Honestly, it's far more exaggerated than a Klingon.
Yeah, it's way worse. They wouldn't have made Klingons look like this because they'd be like, no one could have sympathy. No one could sympathize with these monsters. Yeah, she's barreled through Klingon into District 9 bug territory. Prawn territory. Yeah, it's awful. Well, what a way to end.
Are we gonna hit Saddest Old Man Award?
Okay. Saddest Old Man Award for fighters who had a terrible 2020. This one came to us by Sunshine, at Sunshine Sparkle 69. There's only one.
Matt Wyman.
Yeah, he's such a sad old man that, like, it was utterly predictable the moment, like, none of us thought he was still in the UFC. Apparently he's been on contract. He had like 9 years on the shelf. And then he just comes back out of nowhere. I can't think of a more clear-cut example of the game having passed a fighter by. Like, he just doesn't know modern MMA. In addition to being physically shot, he's just like his game doesn't work anymore. And like to prove that, he jumped guard in his last fight, which will hopefully be his last fight in the UFC. I mean, I don't say that to disparage poor Matt Wyman. I hope he has other options, but he got slam KO'd. And like in a quiet arena, there's something really kind of gross about a slam KO to me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like watching a guy get his head slammed in a back alley.
Yeah.
And then just like...
And is the fact that he was down for so long afterwards.
Yeah.
Just like, this is a young man's game, Matt Wyman.
Really, really
there are so many fighters like that where they just, they never get officially released from the UFC. You just never hear from them again.
Yeah.
And the fact that when they do come, you're just like, no.
Yeah, like I'm prepared for like I don't know, like Mitch Gagnon to suddenly appear like 3 years from now. Like, well, I liked you when you were a contender, but like, yeah, I thought you were gone. I thought you were free. I don't know. It's like seeing someone show back up in prison somehow. It's like, I thought you got released. You just got moved over to the next block.
But someone from like who had a 10-year, like close to 10-year hiatus, like was like a pretty mid-range guy back in the day anyway.
Yeah, right.
Like Claude Patrick or Amir Sadolla suddenly came back.
Yes.
Like,
Patrick
like, no, he's going to get obliterated in the modern UFC. They're like, oh yeah, fight Vicente Luque or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
No.
Man, Amir Sadolla really is the one to shout out. That is.
Can you imagine?
That's the exact class of fighter. Yeah.
What a modern welterweight would do for Amir Sadolla.
Kamaru Usman versus Amir Sadolla. Yeah.
Yeah, that's mean. Just a regular good modern welterweight.
Mm-hmm. Well, Phil, I think that's the pre-handies.
I think they've done their job. I feel, quite excited now.
Tumescent?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sort of frustrated, actually. Mad. I kind of want to do the rest of the handies now because I do enjoy these, so we're going to be running into the first official episode of 2021 with just severe blue balls and ending the year of 2020 with an appropriately stupid joke from your very tired host. I've been Connor Rebush. I hope that we have been able to provide some sanity to all of you throughout this year, especially those of us listening in the two countries we hail from, Phil. The U.S. and the UK,
Indeed.
Forever brothers in shooting ourselves in the dick.
Hooray.
It's been great, but there have been a lot of good moments to laugh about. And Phil, I've enjoyed doing the show with you all this year. It's been great.
It's been a sanctuary from the other horror from my end for sure.
Basically, yep, that's it. So we'll be back next week with the handies. That show typically stretches to like the 2-hour mark. So we will be, we'll have our nice warm drinks to keep ourselves alert We will have all of these many categories that we received both, from our own genius brains and the slightly less, but still impressively genius brains of our many listeners.
And I would like to reassure everyone that just because all of these awards that we looked at today were like stupid, silly awards, this does not mean next week's show will be devoted to good and sensible awards. In fact, moving forward, we will be emphasizing that we will be talking about like good, pointful awards less and less, and we'll be talking more about stupid awards.
Because there's definitely a place. This is a good show to have a mixture, and I want to always have a heavy dose of analysis. But like for the awards, literally every other podcast is doing year-end awards, and they're all gonna have the same picks. We're gonna have some of the same picks. We're gonna be talking about Kevin Holland and Davis and Figueiredo
And no one wants to hear us pontificating about what KO of the year is. You all know what that is.
Yeah, and Joaquin Buckley and Khamzat Chimaev. What the big stories of the year were. They're big stories because they're big. You heard about them. I would say next week's official Handies lineup is about 80% sheer stupidity, which I'm very happy with. And frankly, if Kevin Holland wasn't a nominee, we'd probably another normal award that we would have cut out already. But yeah, it's been a good one. It's been great. Next week is going to be a great Handies. Very much looking forward to it, and looking forward to all of you joining us for it, and hopefully kicking off 2021 in a somewhat more optimistic way than we probably should at this point. Find us on social media. Phil is at Evil Greg Jackson. You can find me at Boxing Bush, BUSCH. Both of those on Twitter.com, of course. Find our shit on Bloody Elbow. Phil, I'm assuming neither of us has anything to plug.
Not this week.
Perfect. Check out the Heavy Hands store. We should always be plugging that. You can get all sorts of shit. Shower curtains, bath mats, clocks, as well as things you actually want, like t-shirts and mugs and hoodies, and throw blankets. And you can get all of these things emblazoned with our beautiful logo designed by the equally beautiful John Gallant, who, if you haven't seen his MMA artwork, you probably have, but if you haven't, you should just go, check out his Tumblr or whatever he's got, and just look at all of his stuff, because he's really, really good, and he made us a really, really good logo, and you will like the way it looks on a shirt or bath mat. That's it. Thank you all so much for another beautiful year of Heavy Hands, and if you came here in 2020 for the finer points of face punching, I think you'll agree you came to the right place. This has been Heavy Hands.